From the heart of Yerevan to all corners of the world, this is CivilNet's Daily News Digest for Tuesday, September 24th. I'm Maria Titizian.
And I'm Paul Chaderjian. Here's our overview of the biggest stories our team has been covering for the past 24 hours.
President Serge Sargsyan criticized Central Asian members of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, or KISTO, for endorsing Azerbaijan's position regarding Karabakh. Sargsyan said this while in Sochi, Russia, attending the regular session of the Council of KISTO. Sargsyan spoke about the imperative of finding a peaceful solution to the Karabakh conflict, and in accordance with this, he underscored the Moscow statement that was adopted by KISTO in 2012 December, which highlights the dual principles of the right to self-determination and territorial integrity of international law. The Armenian president said that certain members of KISTO utilized other platforms, such as the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, to make statements in regard to NKR that do not fall in line with the treaty organization's principles. He said, quote, "Naturally, many countries will have their own interests connected with Azerbaijan, but we cannot agree when those relations lead to the adoption of documents directed against the interests of KISTO member states." On August 16, Kazakh President Nursultan Nazarbayev and his Kyrgyz counterpart Almazbek Atambayev backed a Karabakh settlement which said, quote, "within Azerbaijan's internationally recognized borders," in a joint declaration adopted at a summit of Turkic-speaking states in the Azerbaijani city of Gabala.
Karabakh's defense ministry says there were 200 ceasefire violations and more than 1,000 shots fired by Azeri armed forces last week between September 15th and 21st. The ministry reports Armenian forces continued their military duties in line with ceasefire principles, taking necessary measures to protect the front lines. In 2012 alone, there were more than 14,000 ceasefire violations by Azerbaijan on the line of contact. These violations intensified during state holidays and special events.
The delegation of California lawmakers who were in Armenia last week visited Nagorno-Karabakh on Sunday. President Bako Sahagian's office reports that among the issues discussed by the president and the lawmakers were how to deepen economic and cultural ties between Artsakh and California, and developing democratic institutions in Karabakh. Deputy Prime Minister Artur Agapekyan, Minister of Foreign Affairs Garen Mirzoyan, and Robert Avedisian, the permanent representative of NKR to the USA and Canada, also met with the U.S. delegation, which included assembly members, Los Angeles City Council members, and representatives of the ANCA Western region.
14 years in prison. That's the sentence handed down for former presidential candidate Vartan Chaderjian for the attempted murder of another former presidential candidate, Baruir Hayrikyan. Khachadur Bogosyan and Samuel Harchunyan, who were hired to kill Hayrikyan, were sentenced to 14 and 12 years behind bars. The prosecution said Chaderjian ordered the murder of Hayrikyan in early January. Hayrikyan was shot in the shoulder on January 31st when he was on his way home.
And speaking of presidential politics, on September 22, Azerbaijan's main opposition coalition held a rally in Baku to shore up support ahead of next month's presidential election scheduled for October 9. Several thousand supporters of the National Council of Democratic Forces gathered at a stadium in the Yasamal district of the capital. According to organizers, police prevented some supporters from attending the rally, blocking entryways and limiting access to the stadium. The Azerbaijani government has made no official comment. The participants at the rally demanded, among other things, the release of political prisoners and creating normal conditions for candidates to conduct their campaign and to meet with potential voters. Some 8 candidates are expected to face off against Aliyev, who has held power since succeeding his father in 2003. He is widely expected to win a third term. It is noteworthy that during the 2008 presidential elections in Azerbaijan, Aliyev was able to secure 87% of the vote, while opposition parties boycotted the elections. And in a constitutional referendum in 2009, term limits for the presidency were abolished and freedom of the press was restricted.
The Executive Committee of the Union of European Football Associations, or UEFA, has confirmed the list of member associations that have declared an interest in hosting matches for the 2020 UEFA European Championships. Armenia is among the 32 member associations that have stated their interest, together with their proposed provisional host cities, to host the championships.
Ian Gillan, the soloist of the band Deep Purple, was in Armenia to take part in the opening of a renovated music school in Gyumri, Armenia's second largest city. A collaboration including many individuals and organizations resulted in the renovation of the music school. Most prominent among them is John Dee, who in 1989 came up with the idea of Rock Aid, which brought together rock musicians to help Armenia following the devastating Spidak earthquake of 1988. As we all know, the earthquake devastated cities, towns and villages. It wiped out the industrial complex of the country. Currently living in Australia, John Dee's organization Do Something, along with the Fund for Armenian Relief, spearheaded the initiative. CivilNet's crew took part in the opening of the school in Gyumri. You can watch the whole story by clicking on the link on your screen.
System of a Down vocalist and human rights activist Serge Sargsyan will appear in concert Friday night in Moscow. The performance at the Crocus City Hall coincides with Sargsyan's Russian release of his fourth solo album. The new album, called Orca, debuted in the US last summer. It's a 4-part symphony. That is our digest for today. We want to hear from you. Our email address is english@civilnet.am.
Thank you for joining us. See you all tomorrow.